Losing a child to murder has been a nightmare for dozens of families in the Savannah area. For some of them, it's been frightening after they learned that the killer convicted for those crimes got to go home on probation.
Those plea deals have led to intense scrutiny of our criminal justice system.
Lead investigative reporter Jessica Savage spending the past 6 months looking into how murder cases are being prosecuted in Chatham County. She found some cracks in the justice system.
I found the case of a convicted felon who admitted to shooting and killing a man while he was on probation, and then he was sentenced to probation again. Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to the victim's mother. She says the criminal justice system failed her, and she's not the only one who feels that way.
It's one thing to lose your child in a murder, but it's another thing when you can't even get the help after losing your child from the police. I mean, the DA.
It's a pain that isn't easy for Vera Hennigan to talk about. Her youngest son, Devontae, was shot and killed in the summer of 2019. For years, she's held on to hope for justice and some of Devontae's favorite things.
Jordans. His
life was cut short at the age of 27. On the night of June 11th in 2019, Devontae was playing video games with 4 friends inside this house on Damascus Road. Witnesses told police they heard a knock at the door, and then 2 armed men forced their way inside. They pointed their guns and told them to lay it down. After Devontae put his hands up, the gunmen started shooting. The first call for help came from inside the house.
Chatham 911, where's your emergency?
I need an ambulance and the police at 6909 Damascus Road. Please hurry up.
Neighbors heard the gunshots and called for help too.
There was gunshots outside. Somebody ran through our yard. Somebody's banging on our door. I've got my kids locked in the bathroom.
Don't answer the door. Just stay in the house, okay? We do have police on the way out there. How many gunshots did you hear?
When police arrived, they found 4 people shot. Devontae had been shot 12 times. He and one of the shooters died in the attack.
An arrest in a June 11th double homicide along Damascus Street.
3 weeks later, a detective shared the news of an arrest.
She was so excited that they had found the person who they said killed my son.
The next month, a Chatham County grand jury indicted Derek Gallup Jr. as the shooter on felony murder charges. He faced up to life in prison without parole because of his violent past. The case headed toward a trial. But it took a hard turn in April of this year when Devontae's mother heard about a plea deal.
I didn't realize exactly what the plea bargain was, that he was just literally free to go, literally, because he had already set 3 years.
Not until she faced her son's killer in court did she learn the details of the deal. Gallup pleaded guilty to manslaughter, not murder. In exchange, prosecutors and the judge agreed to let him out of jail to finish the rest of his 20-year sentence on probation.
So at least this way, there is some acceptance of responsibility. And in our office, we consider that a win.
After weeks of asking for an interview, Chatham County District Attorney Shalana Cook-Jones gave us 10 minutes to explain what happened in this case and in the others we found.
There was an eyewitness who was no longer available to testify, to put the smoking gun in the shooter's hands per se. And we found that perhaps there was more evidence that could have been obtained early on in the investigation, like the triangulation of phone records and that kind of information. And unfortunately, that wasn't done. That's not the fault of the DA's office. You know, that has to do with the investigators.
The Savannah Police Department declined to comment about the case, which they said is still under investigation. The department told me there's another person connected to the murder case who has not yet been identified or charged. So we took the case to a legal expert. Danny Porter has been a prosecutor for 39 years. He was the Gwinnett County District Attorney for 27 of them.
If all you got in that is an eyewitness identification and looking at the circumstances of this one, that's not a very strong case.
But he said for a prosecutor to give probation for manslaughter is highly unusual.
Like, how unusual do you think? I mean, if you're able to put that in perspective, but with the sentence part.
I've never done it. I mean, that may have been all he would take. I mean, when you're in that situation, you're plea bargaining, and sometimes the defendant holds the upper hand.
He said the risk is public safety.
because you know that if you go to trial, your chances are you're not going to be able to succeed. But yet you have a dangerous individual that you have a chance to put under court control. I mean, you're betting that he's gonna fail.
As it turns out, Gallup did fail the moment he took the plea deal. When he admitted to killing Devontae, it was a violation of his federal probation. That's because 2 weeks before the shooting, Gallup was sent home from this halfway house on probation. That's after he served time in federal prison for armed robbery. Devontae's mother knew those details when she faced him in court.
Me personally, as I said to him in the court, I forgive him. However, I feel like the system has failed you as well as myself.
Gallup is now back in federal prison serving a 2-year sentence for violating his federal probation after he was convicted of killing her son. He's set to be released in August of 2024.
Well, this past weekend, Devontae's family had a toy giveaway in his honor. As for Gallup, his defense attorney in the federal case declined to comment. When we come back, we're going to show you how many convicted killers have been given probation this year and what DA Jones has to say about it.
Back now with our lead investigative reporter, Jessica Savage. And Jessica, you uncovered a pattern with the Chatham County DA's office of cutting deals with killers and then they are released on probation. When did this start?
So this pattern began under Chatham County District Attorney Shalana Cook-Jones. She took office in January of 2021. So this year, her prosecutors have cut more plea deals than the last 5 years combined. Those deals include reduced charges and reduced sentences with multiple convicted killers receiving probation. Here's a closer look at the deals.
It's just like pain that you bury.
A heartbreaking reality for one family is part of a pattern of plea deals agreed to by the Chatham County District Attorney's Office.
Is there a reason you're offering so many deals right now in murder cases?
Well, I'd be interested in having a conversation with you about your data because that's certainly not the data that I have.
Okay, share it.
She didn't share the records in our interview. That's despite our repeated request for the records going back months. But 1 week after this interview, we got the records. We got them after WTOC's attorneys threatened legal action against her office. Here's a look at what the data shows. We analyzed 6 years worth of murder indictments and how those cases were resolved, either by trial, a plea deal, or dismissal. Before 2019, you can see in red most of the cases went to a jury and ended with a guilty verdict, which meant an automatic sentence of life in prison. But since DA Jones took office in January of 2021, court records show a drastic increase in the number of plea deals in murder cases. We found her office has agreed to more this year than the last 5 years combined. Almost all of those deals cut under Jones's leadership allowed someone to plead guilty to a reduced charge. And 1 in 5 of them allowed the convicted killer to go home on probation. DA Jones did not answer our questions about why there have been so many deals. So we took the data back to our expert.
It seems like if there's that many of them, there's an effort to clear the docket. They have a fire sale going on.
Former District Attorney Danny Porter has been a prosecutor for 39 years. He served as the Gwinnett County DA for 27 of them.
That's not a way, to me, to deal with murder cases. If you're going to clear the books, clear them on the less serious cases. Don't do it with a murder case.
He said, in general, for a murder indictment to be reduced to voluntary manslaughter is rare.
Normally, we would ask for 20 years in prison. I mean, because our attitude was the defendant was getting a benefit because he wasn't serving life.
And that philosophy mostly has held true in Chatham County before DA Jones took office. He said probation for manslaughter is problematic because of how criminals are supervised.
In general, we don't do a good job in this state of monitoring people who have been released from prison who are placed on probation. And part of that is the caseload's so high. If we did a better job of supervising released inmates, then we would see the crime rate go down.
So under Georgia law, a person who pleads guilty to manslaughter is eligible for probation. Probation records in Georgia are considered a state secret, so we don't know how those who are sentenced are being monitored.
Thanks.